Recently, I've been having a lot of fun showcasing ways in which we can play large army games for far less money than you'd think. While traditional fantasy is sort of my go-to, and what I've been concentrating on, I've had a lot of people ask for a more sci-fi dystopian future version. So here we are, with episode 1 of Warhammer on a budget. Or Krieg on a budget? Krieg but better? I guess I'll have to workshop that a bit. Anyways, when Wargames Atlantic asked if I wanted to collaborate with them again, I knew exactly what I was going to make. Krieg. Or at least my version of them. Now, I really have to say that I don't play Warhammer 40,000, and I don't have any current plans to. What we do play within our local scene, though, is one-page rules Grimdark Future, or in the words of the ever-eloquent Spooky, Grimjank. Because everything we do includes somewhere between a little and a ton of jank. So over this 3 to 4 video series, I'll be putting together my Grimjank list, entirely with these inexpensive and awesome kits. And yeah, 100% of this could be used in your games of Warhammer 40K. In fact, I'm making sure to use the correct base sizes in case I ever get that notion. And I'm sure it's in the thumbnail, but for this first vid, I wanted to concentrate on some cavalry. A single $40 Grognard's cavalry kit comes with bits to build 9 horses and riders. Enough for a unit of 5 and some leaders. Or you could go full send with 2 boxes, like I have, and piece together 3 units of 5, plus some leaders. Of course, for the scope of this video, I'm just concentrating on an awesome leader and a single unit. Let's not get too wild just yet. As I often do, rather than starting with the standard unit friends, I jumped right into the leader. This kit has plenty of head options, but this domed helmet with mask was the clear winner, and pointing and shouting seemed stereotypically leader-like. Obviously, our fearless leader needed a power sword. Now, some of you might be shouting that that's not a power sword, but I'll be honest. I don't like some of the absolutely giant weapons that GW gives these regular old humans. I prefer something closer to true scale. Ultimately, it's all pretend. Do what you want with your war dollies. Now, if there's one thing I've learned from Games Workshop, it's that leaders need tactical rocks. Besides, this guy needed a little something extra for this larger base. Of course, cork is my go-to tactical rock, and a couple layers of it seemed about right. Then, to fill in a bit more area and create some sort of atmosphere, I added a coiled piece of scale barbed wire and a chunk of balsa wood, kinda like it was a tipped over post. Finally, to drive home the grim darkness, I dropped in a couple of skulls for the cork throne. These awesome minis, and so many others, come from today's sponsor, Wargames Atlantic. Whether you're looking for classical fantasy, dystopian future, or historical 28mm hard plastic miniatures, Wargames Atlantic has got you covered. I've been using their kits for a couple of years, mostly as kit bash fodder, as they've got so many excellent bits that are all interchangeable. Add futuristic weapons to historical minis? No problem. Skull heads for virtually anything? Yep, that too. And recently I've been building entire armies for very reasonable prices with their kits. If you'd like to get some for yourself, head to the link in the description. There is absolutely no cost to you, but it will drop a coin or two in my tip jar. Thanks Wargames Atlantic for supporting independent creators. Now, back to the Grimjank. With these 6 horse-riding humies assembled, I hosed them all down with my current fave, rusty, dusty base color, grunge brown. It's a slightly warmer and brighter burnt sienna, so either would work really well here. Now the actual GW Krieg horses are a very pale gray, almost white, which is cool, but you know we're doing our own thing. Aside from the iconic gas masks, the thing that has always stood out to me are the blue coats they're generally seen painted with. As a means of making that blue pop, I wanted to keep the rest of the mini in warm, rusty tones. A nice contrast to the blue jacket. For our horsies, this meant mixing some of the grunge brown into scruffulous brown, and painting on some sketchy lines. To give these horses a bit of a wild, overgrown vibe, I primarily used thin vertical lines. Maybe they've adapted to the grim and dark conditions with more fur-like hair. Plus, it's a texture, and I do like texture. To begin building up these volumes, I slowly added more and more bone white. While I'm generally painting less and less surface with thin, sketchy lines each layer, I'm not particularly careful. Sometimes these lines stray over darker areas, which I think ultimately makes everything work a bit better. Real life isn't perfect. Neither are war dollies, so paint imperfectly. Generally speaking, and particularly when painting a pile of gaming pieces, I don't put much effort into boots, belts, and straps. On these horses, that includes the saddles. Mixing more and more ice yellow into earth brown, I gave them a couple of layers, really focusing on upward facing areas. Details like this I prefer to just sink into the background. They just need to not stick out as unpainted, so they don't take attention away from the details I actually want to stand out. Speaking of standing out, I mixed a very small amount of the grunge brown into abyssal turquoise and began painting the jacket, this time mostly using horizontal sketchy lines. It's that time in the video when I say that I don't blend. Just layers of kinda haphazard, sketchy lines. And I don't worry about building complete, opaque layers. I like the results I get, and most importantly, I enjoy doing it. It's a hobby. You really should enjoy it. To continue building the volumes of these jackets, I mixed in more and more ice yellow. I find this abyssal turquoise retains a lot of blue, and so it worked really nicely for these blue jackets. Until very recently, I avoided using metallic paints. I just didn't enjoy using them. But I found some that I actually don't hate, like this chainmail silver. And I've been enjoying playing around and trying to find ways to use them that feel a bit more, well, me. For all the metal on these dudes, I used more of an overbrushing technique, slapping the paint on without trying to get complete coverage, particularly in the recesses and areas between panels. I've also come to the conclusion that when I was first using metallics, I'd wash them down with traditional, boring blacks and browns. Colors that just aren't very me. This time I grabbed a nice bright orange, something that read a bit like rust, and thinned it down to a wash consistency, then simply slopped it all over the metal areas, using a thinned acrylic paint as a wash, and yeah, I just use water. Creates a very matte finish, perfect for rust. When it was all dry, I went back in with the chainmail and picked out some details and areas to shine up, areas where the rust would rub off or would be less likely to accumulate. With these horse riding freaks all painted, all that was left was the bases. Generally, I keep my bases very simple and don't leave them separate from the model. I'll start by covering everything with whatever texture paste I've got on hand, then hose it down with whatever my underpainted color is. On the leader's base, I very quickly dry brushed some color onto the skulls and fence post, and painted the barbed wire just like the metal on the minis. Then I mixed up a wash of old rust pigment powder and water. I really can't tell you what the proportions are here. I just do it purely by feel. Then slopped it all over the base, and the lower parts of the horse's legs. The pigment powder dries super matte, and will stay in place through the varnishing process. Quick, simple, and I like the look. So, here are the first units of my budget-friendly Krieg force. I'm really happy with how they turned out, but please let me know what you think in the comments below. Once again, thanks Wargames Atlantic for supporting independent creators. Check out their excellent stuff at the link below. Again, ordering through the link costs you nothing, but it does let them know to continue supporting independent creators. Most importantly though, thanks for watching. You are awesome.